There's no intro these days, so you just jump straight in because I do it all in post.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, for the video, I don't put in the intro because we'll just be sitting here and the intro will be playing. So I'm like, I don't have like an animation.
Oh, yeah, no,
or
that's
anything.
true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
The videos are coming out really nicely. I like the production value and all the viewers as well. Getting ticks. So that's nice.
Yes. Well, the June video is our most watched video. I think
Nice. Yeah.
up to 800 and something views as of recording this one. So
That's pretty good. Was that
yeah.
more than the TikToks?
No, the TikToks usually get more just because I guess they're shorter.
The short form.
Yeah. So we do get more views on those.
Nice.
But in terms of watching a full review, that's our best one so far since we've gone onto YouTube.
Yeah, it's good. You created. I mean, look, it's a massive movie, and I think you got out there just in the time of that peak fan fever.
Yes.
Of June, and you know the hype of it, which is good. It's still going on, which is great.
Yes, yeah. It's still like I think it's number 3 in terms of box office at the moment. So
Nice.
The movie we're about to review is number 1. So
yeah. Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. In terms of like for the last couple of weeks, it's been number 1 at the box office.
Oh damn! There you go.
So weird intro this time. So it's not our usual one. Hi everyone, welcome to the Cognitive Recalibration Podcast. As always, I'm your host Shravan. We don't have Taran with us, as you've already seen. He's not too well at the moment. He's got a bit of man flu, as they say, so he's recovering. But who are you going to call when you don't have your co-host? That would have made sense if we were talking. Actually, we can talk briefly about Ghostbusters because we did watch that as well. But
yeah, we did.
Yeah,
who are you going to call? Bhaskar. So hey, it's Bhaskar, everyone. Today's going to be we're reviewing a movie of Empires today.
Yeah. So, Frozen Empire and the New Empire.
The New Empire. So Empires Strike Back.
Yeah. And interesting.
I'll find a way to sneak in a Star Wars reference if it kills me.
We haven't done a Star Wars review in quite some time, actually. I think the last one we did was Mandalorian, which you joined us for.
Interesting. Yeah, there's been a lot of movement in that space. So
yeah. But yeah, welcome on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, we did watch Godzilla. So apparently, it's the X is silent. It's what I've been told. Apparently, it's Godzilla Kong, and the X is like there, but
it's actually Godzilla X Kong. But I've never heard anyone say X Kong. Like they just say Godzilla versus Kong. No. Yeah, well, how do people refer to the movie?
I think it's meant to be Godzilla Kong, apparently.
Godzilla Kong.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like a UFC fight. No one actually says the X. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, apparently. But, people do say the X as well. Yeah. The previous movie to this was Godzilla versus Kong.
Yes, that's right.
So it gets a bit confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Godzilla, Kong, New Empire. Nice. I was just thinking about this before. If we took the Frozen Empire and added it to this instead of New Empire, it would still kind of make sense.
Oh, damn. That is true. It would give away kind of the third act, but yes. It's almost like the studios are trying to do the same damn movie.
Yeah, and you could switch New Empire to Ghostbusters and probably still might be okay. So this one is directed by Adam Wingard, who directed the previous one. So Godzilla versus Kong was also directed by him. Interestingly, Godzilla versus Kong, they didn't plan a sequel to that. So they made the movie and they just wanted to see how well it did. That's why I didn't have a post-credit scene.
Yep.
And obviously it did very well, despite coming out in 2021 with a HBO Max release on the release date.
Basically COVID, yeah.
So it was on streaming at the same time as cinemas, but it still did pretty well in the cinemas. So that's why this movie's come out. And we can talk about the box office for this movie. So it's done so far. It's been about a week since it's come out now. It's done over 220 million worldwide.
Wow.
I think Godzilla versus Kong did about 300 to 400.
Which is very interesting given that it was released during the end tail of COVID.
Correct. Yeah.
And theaters hadn't really opened up back then yet. I'm guessing across the States and even across Australia.
No.
We hadn't. What time of the year? Like
it came out in a similar time. I think March
2021. No, we would have been closed down.
Yeah. I think there was a gap. There was like for us. I think there was like about a 2-week gap or something.
2-month gap. Yeah.
Between lockdowns, and it came out during. Because I remember watching this. This was the first movie I watched in the cinema after, like, in that COVID period.
Yeah, it was Top Gun was another one, right? That came out around that time.
Yes, Top Gun was 2020. 2022. So that was a year after.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
thought that the cinemas really only started after Top Gun Maverick came out.
Correct,
That was like the push to get people back.
So 2022 is when they really opened up.
Yeah. But this was really early on in 2021.
2021. So it was like,
Yes, interesting.
Yeah.
Then this should have. It was planned to be released. I remember all of those films that came out after the cinemas were closed and they opened up again. They should have been released in 2020. That's what the original plan date was.
Correct,
It was
yeah.
meant to be this massive year.
same
of
with
like,
June. June was also meant to be
Yeah.
2020.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So this was one of the first few that actually came out.
Right.
I think it just timed it just when, like, I think some of the lockdowns were easing, and there was a gap for us anyway in that time period where we weren't in a lockdown. But then immediately I think
after.
by April we were back in
Yeah,
lockdown.
that was a
2021.
very interesting
Yeah.
period. So if that got 400 million worldwide,
This is going to make more. So I think this will make. I think I briefly looked at the box office across all of the legendary Monsterverse. That's the name of the studio is Legendary. I'm not using that as an adjective.
Not the adjective. It's a very clever way they made their studio name.
Yeah, and I think the highest grossing one, I think it was 2014's Godzilla. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
It's either 2014 Godzilla or Godzilla King of Monsters, which was the sequel to that.
Yeah.
Kong Skull Island also did reasonably well. So those first three did reasonably well. But I think this is well on the way to sort of becoming one of the highest grossing in the franchise.
Yep.
Just because I think it's come at a time where there also isn't that much competition this year in terms of action movie.
Yeah. Or one of these, I'm tempted to say like kaiju or Titan movies. It's its own genre, I guess you could say. There's not. Yeah, you're right. There's not anything else people. This is like one of those blockbuster films that you just tell your friends we should watch this.
Yeah,
you know, it's not competing with anything else.
There's no DC movies. There's no Marvel movies.
Like
there's only one Marvel movie this year. There's, I think if you count Joker 2 as a DC movie, there's one DC movie this year.
The I forgot the full name of it, but it's Joker
with Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn. Yeah.
Yes, and it's a musical, which is interesting.
Is it officially musical?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Apparently it's officially a musical, which is quite a deviation from the first one, which was certainly not a musical.
That was, some people might interpret it that way.
So let's go to our thoughts on this movie. We can start with positives. What did you think of it?
Well, let me just first get my shirt out.
Oh yes.
Got my Godzilla.
You're
Godzilla
one
versus-
of the. I think you're the only guest that actually comes dressed for the occasion.
with the thematic clothes.
You came with a pink shirt for Barbie.
This is not actually Godzilla. This is Augzilla versus King Posse. So when I put it on, I'm like, yeah, this is just a thematic shirt, but it's not really licensed from Toho. So
yes,
they probably didn't give the rights. So no, it's very interesting. Yeah, positives for this film. I like direct sequels. So the fact that this was a direct sequel to Godzilla versus Kong was a bit. I think it was unexpected. I didn't know what to expect going into the film. If it was going to be a more general kind of monarch film about, the Titans and stuff. But it looks to be a direct sequel. Some of the characters are recurring as well, like the chief scientist, the human characters, the little girl from the tribe. And
I actually didn't notice. It is the same actor as well. She just looked different in this. I didn't realize it was her until she started talking. And obviously her daughter, she was in the previous one as well. So I was like, oh, it's the same person. She just had a different hairstyle. I didn't
different hairstyle. The girl's grown up. So it's like,
her.
I feel like they definitely wanted a continuity. So the continuity is good. It means that when you don't have to redo the whole, I guess, lore of the whole, what was the whole the Hollow Earth theory?
Hollow Earth,
that was a big thing. Like they spent a lot of time
in the previous movie, right?
Movie. So they just went right into it. I like the pacing was always very, bang, 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 bang. Definitely like kind of followed certain events. So you could always count on something there being there. The execution of which I'll probably speak about in the next segment. But it was not anything that was too far off from what we were expecting. The trailers gave us a good thing to expect. And as a Titan blockbuster film, you always want to look at the trailer, and the trailers are always trying to pick some sort of story, but it's not going to go down that way. The way the trailers made it out to be, it was like, oh, Godzilla and Kong are going to go at it again, And, the movie doesn't disappoint. There is also parts where there's things that are surprised. There's certain elements that are kept hidden in the movie. You don't really find out until the end. So it's good. I'm glad they didn't reveal everything in the trailers.
There was some, and we haven't seen this in a while. We saw it with Marvel where they deliberately remove stuff from trailers. So there's shots in the trailer that are in the movie.
Yeah.
But there's things in those shots that are in the movie that are not in the trailer.
Yeah. Like they CGI'd out certain elements.
Yeah.
Or certain characters. Yeah. Certain large insects. Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that the second time around watching that one.
Yeah.
But I think even just setting up the story, I like how. So Godzilla as an entity in this universe of where there's Kong and there's potential other Titans we've seen them before, they kind of make it seem like, okay, we don't know where Godzilla is. He's just roaming around and he's this apex threat level guardian Titan that will show up if there's a threat. They put it that way. And all of the stories behind the perspective of this ex-Monarch employee who's trying to manage her relationship with her family. So it's like with her new daughter, which is the Eevee girl, right? So from that setting, I felt like, okay, they kind of disarmed the audience. It's not from this kind of defensive standpoint of when's the next attack coming, what's going to happen. It's a human story. Or they try to make it out like a human story. Set up the narrative and ground us immediately with the troubles of this little girl trying to adapt. And then it goes from there. But we're always at the back of our mind thinking, well, okay, Godzilla's somewhere on this level. Meanwhile, Kong is in another part of the Hollow Earth, and I think where Godzilla versus Kong started and left off was Kong was like this bachelor dude living his own life, trying to find his family, couldn't find anyone. Has his whole adventure, fights Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, they team up and do all this stuff in Godzilla versus Kong, and then Kong comes back to his lair and he's his bachelor again. It's literally like the music they play as he comes back is like he's just wrapping his head, picks up his newspaper or whatever, and just walks off into the sunset. And I'm like, okay, they've made him seem like that you get feelings of that same kind of humor in the way they treat Kong, but it's a little bit more, it's got more gravitas in this film. There's an actual sense of longing that you see that Kong wants to have. He's constantly looking for his family. Like he hears a noise that he thinks is another ape. It goes and it finds out it's this toad that just screams like a massive monster, but it's not.
Yeah.
So,
well, they did say. I think there's a lot. It's either in this movie or the previous movie, but they do say Kong likes to be around, or he's not used to being alone. Essentially, he likes being around.
He's like a social creature, but he's never had any of his other kind with him.
Correct. Yeah.
So it was interesting. It kind of brought back vibes of the older King Kong movies, where you kind of feel like, oh, what's the solitary Kong doing out here? Like, where is his family? You kind of feel it doesn't look right in this film because he's by himself. But I wish the trailers didn't do this, but they kind of gave away a bit of the secret that there are other monkeys or there are other Kongs out there.
Apes,
even if it's a small one. So it's like, well, okay, something's going to happen in this one.
Yes.
That is definitely kind of explored, the theory and the lore and the ancient mythos behind, well, what happened to these Kongs?
Yes.
Because the only snippet we get from Kong's Skull Island, I believe, is the skull crushers. And you see like the skulls of different Kongs and the skull crushers intertwined between them in this combat. So there's this narrative that all the other Kongs were killed off from predators and other things. This is the one kind of Omega predator that just survived. And he's found a way to survive on Skull Island. So yeah, there's a lot of story, there's a lot of pacing, there's a lot of progression, a lot of different like new lore elements that come into it. And it's by all means it's a hallmark back to the Toho Godzilla or Kong films where they have, many different monsters or many different titans that interact in a way. So I felt like it's kind of referencing and paying a homage to those old films, but also doing its own new thing.
Yes.
In respect to like in the Hollywood thing. So we first saw it in Godzilla King of Monsters, where that was the first proper legendary kind of mashup of different titans in one go, as opposed to being the Godzilla film by itself was just
Godzilla.
Just Godzilla. Then you got the Mutos that fight in this, in the cityscape. So,
and apparently the Mutos were not Toho characters.
No, they were new.
So for that 2014 Godzilla movie, Toho only gave legendary access to Godzilla.
Yeah.
Only Godzilla. So after the success of that movie, they opened up to other characters, but essentially it was just Godzilla for that first movie, and obviously now it's opened up to
And I think after the success or the fact that Toho showed the respect that Hollywood paid to Godzilla this time round, as opposed to the 1998 Godzilla, which was basically almost written off of law.
Yeah.
They gave more rights for Godzilla King of Monsters.
Yes.
So they actually used Godzilla's orchestral theme from the original Toho films. And for me, as a cinematic moment, that was one of the best kind of payoffs, because it was like, yes, we finally unified the two like laws and realms. And it felt like a traditional Godzilla film, that one for me. So I was like, wow, that's cool. It's cool that we get to be Hollywood fans, but also experiencing what Toho is trying to do. And then we get completely spoiled by Godzilla -1 that released
end of last year. We watched it together.
We always saw it, and it absolutely deserved that Oscar.
Yes.
Yeah, it absolutely. It was unreal.
Yeah. Well, I ended up for last year's best of, after a lot of thought, I actually gave Godzilla -1 my favorite movie of last year.
I'm not surprised.
So
I'm not surprised. It is really, really good.
It was very good.
Visually as well.
Yes,
graphics.
Based on the budget they had, so the budget of this movie is close to 200 million.
Yeah.
The budget of that movie was less than 20 million.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's...
I know we're not reviewing -1, but I've got to say, like, the older Godzillas, when you watch them as a, millennial or Gen X, you look at that and you go, yeah, it's someone in a suit. Okay. It's not that scary. I don't know what. It's like there's got a sense of triviality to it when you're watching the old films. This one, you're watching it and it's like, it's referencing the original Godzillas, the suit, the makeout, the Shin Godzilla as well, right? But the visuals are so good, it's actually scary. Like that scene where Godzilla's chasing the boat in the water and you see Godzilla's face close up. I don't know what they did or how they did it, but it looks like they use an actual model or a miniature or something to make it look ominously real.
Yeah, like the texture felt real.
Felt real. It didn't feel friendly at all, and it just felt like this is not... Like this is not trivial at all. It just feels real, and that's the theme for the whole film.
Yeah,
it's just gritty, it's real, but it's so good. I think we could definitely praise Godzilla -1 till the end of this podcast.
Yes, yeah.
It's just seeing the evolution of it. Good time to be a Godzilla fan.
Yeah,
I can say that.
So, well, in contrast to that movie, this movie, my first experience with Godzilla was actually the 1998 Godzilla movie.
I think likewise I can say it was when I was a kid, we went to watch it.
Yeah, and back then I thought it was good, but it's not good. I watched bits of it again, and it's not good.
Yeah. I feel like they tried to make it too much like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I think it was inspired a lot by Jurassic Park for sure. And then my first experience of Kong was actually Peter Jackson's King Kong. 2005's
remake of the original Kong. Right, yes. I did end up, I did watch the original Kong one with the stop motion animation. And I was like, it's quaint, it's nice, but it's quaint. It's a new story and that kind of stuff. But my proper exposure would have to be, the Peter Jackson's Kong. And at the same time, I think there was a Japanese Godzilla Kong matchup.
Yes.
That was released in the late 60s.
Yes.
And I think I watched that one when I was a kid as well. But it didn't make too much sense to me. It was just like, it's a guy in a Godzilla in a gorilla costume. Is that meant to be King Kong? Okay, that's weird. I didn't know they were in the same universe. Yeah. So it's like
So the original King Kong was I think it predates Godzilla, so it was in the 30s, I believe, the original
King
Kong movie. And the first Godzilla movie was in the 50s.
Yes.
Post World War II.
I think it was 6 or 7 years after the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it is, I did see it. It's drastically different from any of the other Godzillas because it's just, there's still a lot of trauma and a lot of sadness about the events. Like it's mainly about the human devastation that it's caused. And you can tell that this is the first time you're seeing the trauma and you're seeing the generational horror manifest as a creature. But what they're really trying to say is that the real monster behind that are humans or people.
Yeah.
So that's the theme of it. And after that, it became a bit more commercialized and a bit more iconized, and everyone started, relating to the icon that is Gojira. But it's not in that film. It wasn't meant to be that.
Yes,
the original vision of it was meant to be like this horror, this kind of real dark.
And it's born out of radioactive waste. So
literally
that's his origin.
eats it. I think we don't. You see you see him using his atomic breath, but you never see him absorbing it. I think you see it that later on they start building the. I think once the studios noticed that people were fascinated by this creature, they started commercializing on it and making more films, and there became less and less serious as he went on, until you get to Godzilla -1, where they bring it all the way back. Even Shin Godzilla made it much more connected to the kind of government, the politics, and the responses and the propaganda side of things, and how they kind of shield information. But yeah, the original one was the reason why people still like the original one. I think is very much because it's thematically the source of all that came after it, and it was not meant to be this kind of it wasn't meant to be a kaiju film. It was just meant to be this kind of almost like a storytelling exercise as to how that level of devastation can have an impact on everyone else, which was it's different. It's different.
Yeah. Well, we could definitely do like a whole series of episodes on Godzilla and Kong movies.
Like we did watch this retrospective, right?
From Dan Murrell.
Dan Murrell.
If you haven't seen his YouTube channel, definitely check it out. But yeah, he did a very detailed ranking video of all the Godzilla and Kong movies.
Yep, everything from Legendary and Toho and
all the Japanese
animated ones as well. So
good
effort. That takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I remember there was another series we watched a long time back where it was this one guy doing each episode was a retrospective on one film. And it's like a Godzilla series. I forgot which channel this was, but there's a lot of really good filmographers and reviewers out there that do the whole thing, review everything up, and I feel. You can compare the Legendary to Toho. I feel like it's not a fair comparison sometimes because there's a different fan base between Toho and Legendary, and the Hollywood movement is definitely much more kind of the Warner Brothers Legendary universe, the Monarch universe. They're trying to build it up as something a bit more, you could say, spectacular or blockbustery in terms of like the.
It's more of a franchise. They want to build the universe and bring in all these different characters. And
have this TV series on Apple TV Plus that deals with the shadow government monarch style stuff.
Yeah,
which I started watching. It's not bad. They take the events directly from the first from Skull Island and they go forward to Godzilla and they do little snippets here and there. So it's it's an interesting universe. And Godzilla coming back to Godzilla versus Godzilla X Kong. It doesn't feel. This one doesn't feel like it's treading too heavily on the new ground. It's establishing similar kind of territory, but putting in new characters, putting in new situations, new scenarios, and then seeing what happens in this situation. So yeah. It's I think these are the latest canonical events in that universe.
Yeah, apparently it's set in 2029, which I didn't see, but based on my research, it's meant to be 15 years after Godzilla 2014.
Right.
So that's that movie happened in the year it released, but this is meant to be 15 years after that. So Godzilla's been around for 15 years.
Yeah. True. Okay, interesting. This is set in the future then.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of my thoughts on the movie, I think this is agree with everything you said, and I think the action is quite good in this, as it was in the previous one. The thing I'll say about both of these, the Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla X Kong, is they're more Kong-centric than Godzilla-centric. I think this one even more so.
Oh, true.
I think this one, it could also be a negative in the sense that I think Kong is the main character in this movie. Godzilla is around, but he's not involved in the main plot till much later. So I get the branding. Having Godzilla in the title will bring more people to the cinema. So I get why they've done it in terms of marketing. But I think if this is actually reminds me more of like a Captain America Civil War. It's a Captain America movie.
Yeah.
Iron Man's in it, but it's a Captain America movie. So I think this would have been more. I think if they made it a Kong movie and then Godzilla's in it, he features, but he's not the main character. It would have made more sense in hindsight. But I get, having Godzilla in the title is going to get people in the cinema. So I think Godzilla, when you compare the two, Godzilla is top billing, technically. Godzilla has more fans.
Cinematic history wise, it's just that's cinema history right there. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
Godzilla's got to be
Compared
there.
to Kong, he's just he'll pull in more people. So I get why they've done that. But yeah, I liked all the stuff with Kong. So all they follow his sort of story through Hollow Earth and him meeting up with the other apes and all of that I found was really well done.
Yep.
Jumping into the more mixed / negative thoughts, I did like Rebecca Hall was the mother character and the scientist and her daughter. I do like their characters, but they do have a side plot story which does link into the final plot, but it just wasn't as interesting. Every time they switched to that plot, I'd be like, I want to know what Kong's doing, or at least what Godzilla's doing, because we haven't really seen much of him. What's he up to?
Yeah, actually, Godzilla's I think he's the one character that we see the least of.
Yeah.
It's like we don't care what he's going through. We don't care about his emotional state. Screw what he's eating and where he's sleeping. It's just we need him. He's there.
Yeah.
Where is he? We need him. It's just like, okay. It's like
so
it's, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that they need to have like the human characters for at least exposition because Godzilla and Kong don't talk. So you do need some human characters.
Well, there's an interesting way they bridge that with Kong and the girl.
Yes, they do sign language.
They do sign language, which is that bridge of communication, which like it almost is a bit of a cheat, but it works. But do they ever communicate via sign language in Godzilla versus Kong?
Yes, that's when they first find out that she can communicate with Kong.
Okay. Interesting.
In Godzilla versus Kong.
Set the precedent. All right, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of other negatives, I thought that just that deviation, it does kind of hurt the pacing as well because you get invested in the Kong story and then you go over to this story and it's just not as interesting. And arguably, you could almost write the movie without that plot to some extent, because they end up meeting these other characters and there's this whole thing that happens. There's a whole mythology related to those characters as well.
Yep. Related to her own people. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting, but it does deviate from the main plot of the movie.
Yeah, I feel. Do you feel that? And this is this is an interpretive question. Do you feel that the fact that the main two human characters in that film, the mother and the daughter, the fact that they communicated through ALS or sign language instead of vocal and expression-based kind of speech, do you feel like that impacted on us not caring about it much?
Well, I did care about it in the Godzilla versus Kong because I thought the best human character in that movie was the girl.
Yeah.
So they did get me invested, and I do like her in this as well.
Yeah.
It's just maybe the overall plot just wasn't as interesting for their subplot. So yeah, Dan Stevens is a new character that they've introduced in this movie. He brings a bit of energy. I think he's having fun.
Yeah.
And Brian Tyree Henry, who was in the previous movie, he returns for this one as well. So both of them add a bit of comedic relief. Especially, I think Brian Tyree Henry is just like the way they designed his character, even in the first one, he's just there for comedic relief, which is both of them were good.
Both of them were good. I think everyone's got a bit of comedic chops here and there, so it's not too bad. Sometimes it feels a little bit kind of forced in that they're trying to get a laugh in a tense moment.
Yeah,
which I think if you've heard me, or maybe Tyrone even has this thing where sometimes when you're trying to build a serious plot, you can't keep putting in comedic
jokes,
plots, or comedic little riffs here and there just to break the tension. I felt this first in Godzilla King of the Monsters, where it was also a kind of mother-daughter human going with Vera Farmiga and Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah, and Millie Bobby Brown isn't in this one, actually.
She isn't in this one. I think any of those original characters that were in the original Godzilla King of Monsters, they're not in these films.
Yeah. But they were in the Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh, versus Kong. Yes, sorry. As part of the Monarch Bridge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Millie Bobby Brown is not. I think she said she's not going to be continuing that character, even though she's still alive. Obviously,
the character's still alive.
Yeah, they're going to kill off the kid, right?
And Millie Bobby Brown's still alive.
That I felt like when she was, for example, when she was locked in the building and Ghidorah's about to blow the building up, I felt stakes when she was trying to get the console back to her mother. But that moment between them, I felt like that I care about because there's clear fear and expression. Whereas here, I kind of felt like, they're kind of restricted to one mode of communication for the purposes, it's a plot device. So the fact that she can communicate to Kong is the same way she communicates to her mother.
Yeah. And
So
you find out, we can get into it spoilers, but that's kind of her ancestry is related to that as well.
That is true. That is true. It's almost like they don't even need to speak. Like it's that way. The whole choice of the human characters aside, I did feel this film, it didn't feel as cinematic as it should have. I think it just is a result of the choice of scenes, cinematography, the way they go about it. It's not going to be Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, obviously, right? There's going to be multiple different characters and enemies involved. So the way they kind of, when I said the pacing was chop, 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 they just went one thing to another. You have good pacing, but you sacrifice build-up as a result. The build-up of the characters was I feel like a little bit convoluted. Even though it was structured in a way that they explained, oh, this is the main enemy, this is the main kind of chief, this is the main antagonist, this is what's happening there. So they found a way to explain it, but you can't do that in a rushed way.
Yeah.
And
And it's not a short movie. It's not a long movie either, but they could have maybe spent a bit more time developing some of that as well. There's also no human antagonists in this movie. Usually there is.
Yeah, that's true.
In all the other ones there is, but in this one there isn't.
It's entirely natural. Yeah. Which is it's a choice. I think it's part of the fact that if you have too many things going on, which I think this film was close to getting to. There's too many different things going on. You start to not care about the characters or the stakes involved.
Yeah.
Whereas if the only thing I would have done differently is maybe limit the antagonist to just one central thing and build that up so that we actually feel that level of, oh wow, like this is something we haven't seen before. This is going to be really difficult to overcome. What are our characters going to do? So and I think apart from that, it was that the satisfaction of the final act. Maybe it didn't feel as good as it should have been.
Yeah, I think so.
Which I think, not that I want to, if I was going to compare it, I would say King of Monsters had a pretty brutal final act where it's just, Godzilla, Ghidorah, go at it, right? And the human military tries to help Godzilla, which is really cool.
Yeah.
That felt like, okay, there's a good sense of military trying to help and people are working to help with one cause. That felt much more satisfying than, I guess, the end of this one.
Yeah. Even Godzilla versus Kong maybe felt a bit more satisfying in terms of the final act.
Yeah.
With Mecha Godzilla in the previous one. And they kind of set up some interesting stuff in that movie with the axe that Kong gets. And how it can be charged up by Godzilla's.
Right, or it can even deflect it because it comes from Godzilla's tail fin, which is that was really clever, I felt like.
Yeah, and I like that because it was a Godzilla villain.
Yeah.
So it was designed to defeat Godzilla, that villain. And Godzilla was actually outmatched. So they actually set that final act up where Godzilla fights Kong.
Yep.
Kong loses.
Yeah.
So they already established that Godzilla is stronger than Kong twice in that movie because they have a fight before that as well. But then Godzilla's getting absolutely destroyed by Mechagodzilla.
Yep.
And then Kong actually defeats Mechagodzilla in the end because with the help of Godzilla, but he's the one that actually defeats Mechagodzilla.
It's to show that you can't do it, that one character alone can't defeat this ultimate threat, so you have to kind of work together. But the fact that Kong has other strengths than just pure brute force.
Yes, yeah. Whereas in this, I thought technically Godzilla could have defeated the villain in this by himself. I don't think the villain in this was that formidable. He was formidable against Kong, but not against Godzilla. I think Godzilla would have.
Yeah, and we're talking about the same Godzilla from the 2014 Legendary film, right?
Yeah.
Which is if you look at the scale of it, it's taller than skyscrapers. It's ridiculously big. The scale is huge. And I feel like the power and they almost had to power Godzilla down, like give him a handicap in this cinematically. Because if he was as powerful as he was in the previous films, this wouldn't need to be made.
Yeah. Although he spends most of the movie just powering himself up. So he's obviously like...
well, that's the thing. He was powering himself up even more than he was before.
Yeah. So he's meant to be the most powerful he's ever been.
Yeah.
To take on this. Well, there is another... We can get into it in spoilers. It's not just the villain that they show in the main trailers. There is other stuff happening as well.
Other stuff.
Yeah. So So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it was more to combat against that than maybe.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah, true.
but yeah, that's maybe why it was a bit underwhelming. And there was elements of the final scene where I think they thought it would be cool. But the way it turned out maybe wasn't as cool as it was. There was some action sequences that weren't that clear in terms of what was happening because there was a lot of stuff on the screen. We can discuss it in spoilers, but there's a part before the very end sequence where there is an action sequence, and I just thought it was an interesting concept what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just don't think it was executed the way they maybe wanted it to turn out.
I think they also wanted to do you think that they tried to censor this film a little bit to allow kids and families to watch it? So it wasn't as violent as like King of Monsters or Skull Island.
Yeah.
Which were M15 plus M15 plus rating in Australia, and pretty sure they're PG-13 plus in US.
Yeah. So I think the Godzilla versus Kong and this were both PG-13.
Right.
So they did, I think they did censor some of it.
Because there's the one moment where, like, in that final act, in the final fight, something happens, and it happens off screen, and we're left to interpret it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would you leave that important thing off screen?
Yeah.
The only reason why is just because you can't show it.
Yeah. And the other thing they did, which I apparently it's something that Quentin Tarantino does to avoid sort of the worst rating you can get.
Oh, really?
He did it in one of his movies. I'm trying to remember which one. But if you don't have red colored blood, you get less of it. It's not penalized as much.
Oh, yeah.
So most of the creatures in this don't have red colored blood.
Oh, it's all different color. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice little cheat way of going about it.
Yeah. I think it was Dawn to Dusk. Is that his movie? Dusk to Dawn.
Dusk to Dawn.
Yeah. Okay. In that they don't have they have green blood, I think.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, clever choices.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I still had a really good time. I think I'd still recommend watching this, probably even in the cinema, just for the action sequences. I think it's worth it. Just like the previous one, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
It's not as deep as Godzilla 2014. I think that's more of a deeper film. It's less of a kaiju film and more of a
cinema experience.
Yeah.
Like this one, like I know there's a lot of people who are trying to ration out what movies they go to, and with the price of tickets nowadays gone beyond the charts, it can be a bit difficult to see every movie you want in theaters. So I would say if you really want to see this, you don't have to see it in theaters. You can wait till it comes out on streaming and see it in your home theater or see it in your TV. It's not going to, like when I said this wasn't a cinematic film, you're not going to miss out on anything if you watch in theaters and watch it at home. There's not like that lost experience of the cinematic experience.
Yeah.
However, Godzilla 2014, Gareth Edwards, is a must-see in theaters. Like that, the reveal of Godzilla in that film was done masterfully well. It's like an experience. You can have it in your home theater or your TV, but it's when you see it in cinema theaters, everything matters, right? Like the scene I'm talking about is the Muto comes to the airport, tosses the
is this
747. It's the Hawaii scene.
Yes, yeah.
Tosses the 747, and you just see the explosion tumbling, the camera moving to the right, and you just see this gargantuan foot just slam into the ground. And I was
through the windows, right?
See through the windows, and it just the whole crowd goes silent. But in theaters, you can feel the rumble.
Yeah,
that's unique. Like you can actually feel the vibrations of Godzilla's foot hitting down, and that for me was like the pinnacle of the cinema for me for Godzilla, because it's like you don't get that with like any other kaiju film, even Pacific Rim, which is a masterpiece. You don't feel that solitary horror moment for one kind of titan, whereas this one you're like, wow, that was unique. So I feel like there's some movies you got to watch in theaters.
Cinema.
This one doesn't have to be one of them.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, like you can enjoy the action just as much on a smaller screen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not a criticism of the film. It's just that it's. Maybe Godzilla versus Kong, I would say, go see it in theaters because it's the first time you're seeing these two characters. You don't know what to expect. For the second time around, I feel like, this can be more of a, wait and see.
Yeah.
Wait and see how it goes.
All right. I guess we can jump into spoilers then.
Yeah, straight into it.
Yeah. Where do we want to start?
How about the very beginning premise of where they left off?
Yes. So
right?
Hollow Earth.
Hollow Earth. Yeah.
So what happens at the end of Godzilla versus Kong is Godzilla is the king of Earth,
Yep.
and then King Kong is the king of Hollow Earth. So he lives in Hollow Earth. Godzilla lives on. So they got their own territories. They don't go into each other's territories.
They even see there's like a map in the background at one point where one of the monarch people are like, well, they're in separate territories, and there's like these gravity wells that connect the surface to the bottom, so they're in separate zones. They never have to meet.
Yeah,
like they're trying to quarantine two very deadly predators.
Yeah,
which I didn't feel at the end of Godzilla versus Kong that they were that dangerous to each other. Like they just teamed up to defeat Mechagodzilla.
Yes.
It wasn't like they were still going at each other afterwards like some rabid animal. Like it was like, oh, respect. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I thought they were okay to coexist.
I think well, they don't talk, so we don't know. But I think what happens was like they defeat Mechagodzilla, and then I think Godzilla is like, I think he knows that Kong is going somewhere else. I think
there's almost like a moment of like acknowledgement. Like, yeah.
I think he knows that Kong's not going to stay here, so he just swims away, which is what happens at the end of all these movies. Godzilla just swims away somewhere. That's where we start the movie.
Yeah.
So we start with Kong. We show that they show that he's in Hollow Earth. He's trying to find family, trying to find someone else that's like him.
Yeah.
Godzilla is essentially just hunting other titans around Earth, and he's found a home in the Coliseum. He sleeps
in literally the Coliseum in Rome. He's just
he sleeps in there.
That's interesting.
Apparently, there's a graphic. Is it a graphic novel or a comic that's actually shows that Rome scene that the movie starts with?
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So there's some additional content you can get from this universe, and one of them is a Godzilla comic that follows his adventures after Godzilla versus Kong.
Right.
And he's basically defeating all these other monsters, and it ends with him in Rome.
Yep.
So basically, it ends just before this movie starts.
Yeah. And what was the Titan that he fought in Rome?
I do not know. It's one that looks like a crab. Was that the one?
Yeah. It was one of the crab. And it's just funny where it's like these random Titans now pop up every now and then as a result of the events of King of Monsters, right? So it's like, well, he starts defeating them one by one, but the way that Godzilla comes into and out of the cities is usually he tries to make the least amount of damage as possible. So he's going through the riverbed system.
Yes.
And he's just crushing all the bridges, and all the people are like, look at all the damage Godzilla's causing. And one of the Monarch people were like, imagine the amount of damage he'd cause if he wasn't there.
Yeah.
If it was just the Titans going around, destroying, it's like, you're lucky he's here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is actually a very interesting angle that they've taken to kind of justify the actions of the Protector Titan.
There is a lot of destruction in this movie. So like, I'm just like, imagine if we'd lived in this world where just randomly Godzilla just comes out of nowhere and just destroys us.
Yeah. You'd almost have to be like prepared to just in case that happens, which is something they explore in the Monarch TV show.
Yeah,
where it's set in the events after the initial Godzilla attack on San Francisco. And what happens is that now it's set in Tokyo. Tokyo has this Godzilla alarm system where they have drills every time there's a tremor or something, and there's like missile embankments on the top of bridges and skyscrapers are all protected. Godzilla signs everywhere. And the moment alarm goes off, everyone goes into the subway with like guided lightways and everything. So it's like this really nicely engineered civilian protection system. So I feel like, that's the kind of thing they're trying to build, Monarch, this protection system. And we get hints of that in this first film. Like, okay, they're all monitoring the positions. They notify people. They tell government and the UN what the damage is, but how much it could have been and how much it was prevented.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was an interesting angle. They're trying to.
Although I think at the climax of this movie, I think is it Rio de Janeiro where they end up. I think it's where they all come out, and pretty sure they weren't alerted there because there was a lot of people there just on that beach.
No, they were just loitering around. They had no idea there was a gravity well or just in the middle of the
so they all just come out. I guess they couldn't detect that anyway because they were in Hollow Earth and they come out. So
and there's Monarch stations now on Hollow Earth.
Yeah,
monitoring not just Kong but other stuff.
Yes,
so that was really cool. I don't know if they had that beforehand, but this.
I think they ended the previous movie where they set up a base in Hollow Earth. And that's where Rebecca Hall and her live.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that must have been set in the future as well, because there's not that much time difference between that and this.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah. I think so. I think that one must have been set in the future. Yeah.
2019 or 2020 or something like.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing 10-year difference.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Between that and
Well, it
this.
sounds like Kong hasn't been in Hollow Earth for that long at the start of this movie.
Was Kong ever in Hollow Earth? Oh no, sorry. Kong was in the Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
In this film.
Yeah.
He gets there.
And he gets put in there at the end of the last film. So yeah, and between the last film and this film, it doesn't feel like there's that much of a gap. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see these things where we see a lot of Hollow Earth again, which is kind of confusing because there's two gravitational fields between layers and stuff, and it just doesn't make too much sense. But just follow what the story is trying to tell you. And you see Godzilla come across a chasm that goes into a deeper section of Hollow Earth, like almost like a Hollow Earth.
Yes.
And he gets there and he finds evidence of a waterway, I believe it was, and that leads to a slightly different area of Hollow Earth, which I forgot the name of already. It's like a new area of Hollow Earth that is different to his surface level.
Yeah.
And there he encounters a tiny ape.
Yeah.
Right? Which is the golden ape we see in the trailers.
Yes.
He encounters that ape.
He's got a name. I'll find his name.
Yeah. They essentially are confused to see each other, but they get into a bit of a small tussle. Godzilla's trying to get him. Then two other...
Suko is his name.
Suko, is it? Oh, okay, interesting. It's not Baby Kong from the original Toho films. All right, so it's
it's not. It's not.
It's not that.
He's not the same species. So, like King Kong's modeled after a gorilla. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas these, I think they're chimpanzees.
Yeah, they look like big chimpanzees, even bonobo apes or something. They don't look the same. They look much lankier arms.
Yeah.
But they look very ominous. So they run into these other apes, two more adult apes that are completely, like the skin and the hair on their face is kind of scarred. They've been attacked by something, and they try and attack Kong. They get into a massive fight. Kong knocks out both of them.
I do like that they show that Kong is he doesn't bow to anyone, which is what they say in the previous movie as well.
Yeah.
So he'll put up a fight no matter who it is. Right. So he does that in this, and he shows like he is the king when it comes to like fighting at least in Hollow Earth.
Right.
And anything he encounters there, he can pretty much defeat. So his introduction to the other apes, and there's a mini sort of tussle that they have. That was good. And there's a whole sequence where like they go across, like the Tsuko is leading them across this hollow. There was a name for it. It's like within Hollow Earth, another layer underneath. Yeah. And there's like a sea monster that they encounter that he defeats pretty easily. And they eventually get to this place where the is the Claw King? What was his name?
The Claw King, which is this massive orangutan like orange haired ape.
Yes,
that uses a bone crusher spine as a whip.
Yes,
and he has a crystal at the end of it. And this whole premise that he's keeping all the other Kongs aren't just alive; they are being subjugated by this Claw King and his band of bodyguards.
Yes.
A different species, but they're giant ape. And the whole reason why the Kongs have been kind of trapped and sealed off is that they were caught and enslaved essentially by this one ape. And we see this being explained by the human characters when they end up in Hollow Earth.
Correct. Yeah.
With the kid and the girl, all the characters end up coming to Hollow Earth. They encounter the Eevee tribe, and who are thought to be gone because Hollow Earth is not Hollow Earth. It doesn't have any documented humans living in there. But they find these ruins, and they find the whole scene of them discovering the Eevee tribe was very lengthy.
Yes. And it did take away because they cut it just when Kong meets the other apes.
Yeah. So as he's meeting him,
they cut it there, and they don't get back to like the assumption is they're still walking across to get to this place, but like they cut it there.
Yeah,
and that's where it kind of hurts the pacing. But yeah, they do spend a lot of time with this new Eevee tribe and.
Or maybe the old Eevee tribe.
We don't
know how ancient these guys are because this is the first time they're seeing indigenous humans in Hollow Earth.
Yes. So
they have this very peculiar way of communicating. They communicate telepathically.
Yes.
Even though they communicate telepathically with each other, not with the people. But they can understand everything that people are saying. So if they're like, if the guy is like saying, what are they looking at? Why are they looking at me? Like, why can't we just get out of here and meet Kong? They just they know exactly what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
even though they don't speak English.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was an interesting way to go about it. But they go into this chamber, and the reason why the humans got called down was because the girl kept seeing this distress message in her head
Yes.
of 3 spikes.
Yeah. Which was actually from these people that they generated.
Yeah, we thought it might be the tremors or something, but it was actually these people that were sending off this signal. So they called her down. They called some SOS beacon down, inadvertently bringing them into the fold of the lore of what happened to the Kong, the remnants, and Godzilla, and the ancient fights they used to have, and the Claw King that enslaved Kong's people. So they do this in hieroglyphics.
Yes. Yeah.
And the moment they show the hieroglyphics of the Kong people, enslaved, that's when you see Kong encountering everyone. So the reveal is interesting of the Kong still alive. What happens? Kong immediately gets into a fight with the Claw King.
Yeah.
And the secret is that the crystal that he has in that Claw King, in that weapon, controls this ancient titan, right? And his name is Shimu, was it? Or
Shimu, yes.
Shimu,
yes.
Which is a frost. It's like a quadrupedal Godzilla, but it's frost beam instead of atomic breath. He uses a frost beam, and he's like an ancient titan that has been locked away in the Hollow Earth. And
apparently, the cause of the Ice Age is what they say as well in this.
Oh, that Shimu caused the Ice Age by shooting the beam out. Yeah. Right. So this Claw King can basically control this titan against its will by summoning it and by pointing, basically using it as a dog on a leash, right, to attack. So he does that, attacks. Kong gets blasted in the hand with this ice blast, and his hand's out. He's completely decommissioned. He's injured. Runs out of this hollow Earth, runs to the humans, essentially, right? Goes back up into the surface, runs to the humans, and the humans patch him up.
Yeah.
And no, sorry, he doesn't run back to the surface for that.
He runs back to the surface in terms of the Hollow Earth part of the surface.
Yeah.
So it goes to that
goes
part.
To mid-level, yeah.
Yeah, the mid-level. And then he's, he gets patched up. He gets like a robotic arm.
A robotic arm, which was apparently a project that Monarch was working on.
Yeah,
for some reason.
So that there are definitely conveniences in this movie where,
you can tell it's been designed through like the artwork. Yeah. Someone's like, what if he had a robotic arm? Yeah, cool, let's write a story behind that. It's just like, okay, fair enough.
The way he gets it is, he just gets it. It just happens to be there, and
he still has an axe, by the way. He still has his
axe.
His Godzilla axe, which makes a little comeback in the last act.
Yes,
but it's not enough for the Claw King. It's not to defeat him, so he gets the help of the humans. Humans cybernetically enhance his hand, and then
he goes to the top to get Godzilla.
Yeah, then Kong knows.
Well, technically, Godzilla is actually the enemy of the Claw King. So, like, historically, Godzilla is the one that pushed him into this part of the Earth. He's the one that
that's what in that ancient battle. But do they suggest that they fought before?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Because there's a hieroglyphic that shows Godzilla fighting the Claw King, and Godzilla was like the Titan of Earth, and the Claw King was trying to take over Earth. So they, at least Godzilla's ancestor, might not be this Godzilla, but they're technically enemies,
right?
Technically, but obviously Kong is now an enemy of him as well. So he goes up to the top. The moment he gets up to the top, Godzilla's like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
I thought you weren't coming back.
Literally, it's like that meme, like saying, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Huh? What are you doing?" Nothing. Just hanging around. And he just comes and charges him.
I just need you to come down here. And then like Godzilla's like just gets his atomic breath out straight away.
Get up off my land. They fight in Egypt, right? Basically demolish the pyramids. And he's just like, go back to where you came from, bro. And he they fight, and then I put the secret third support character, and this is Mothra.
Yes.
Right? Which has got a connection to the girl. And for the life of me, I don't know how Mothra came back, because at the end of King of Monsters, it basically disintegrates into a fine dust and it gets absorbed by Godzilla. In this one, when the humans go back into the Hollow Earth, they find the gateway into the sublevel. When they find the ancient Eevee tribe, a little moth comes up to them, to the girl. It's like a bright little moth, tiny. It's like hand size, and it's just a question raised: is that a baby Mothra? What is that? That same little baby moth comes and then meets the girl at the top of the pyramid once they've done the whole storytelling and saying the girl is the key and she's the one who's got to summon Mothra. This tiny moth turns into reveals the huge, fully grown Mothra,
Mothra, yeah.
which I guess there's a lot of convenient storytelling in this, but that was a bit of a leap.
Yeah.
Like, not even saying that Mothra's been rejuvenating or there's been a cocooned Mothra somewhere. It's just like this tiny Mothra is Mothra.
Yeah.
Just accept it, guys. It's a spiritual thing. It's like,
Yeah.
it comes
and Mothra
out.
wasn't really that important to the plot, apart from getting Godzilla on board.
Yeah. Like sowing peace between Kong and Godzilla to say, you guys got to work together.
Yeah. It didn't really serve that much of a purpose, but there is some lore that comes with Mothra. Apparently, every time Mothra dies, she can come back as a different Mothra, like from her.
Yeah. There is that.
Yeah.
There's a bit of that in Toho as well, where they kind of like it always comes back through its children.
Yeah.
And that one scene where so you see Godzilla and Kong fighting on the surface in Egypt, Mothra basically just comes and intervenes and without any dialogue or any language, just starts telling them signals, and then they both get along.
Yeah, and
They
the kid comes up as well, doesn't she? She's there as well, and I think she's there with Mothra. I thought.
Oh yeah, no, I think she is.
She
Mothra
comes
flies up.
Yeah, and
it's
because I thought she could only communicate with Kong, but it seemed like Godzilla kind of
communicate with Mothra.
Well, yeah, Godzilla can communicate with Mothra. I think they established that in King Monsters as well. But it looks like he can communicate with the girl as well now. Like she looks at Godzilla in one shot, and Godzilla
immediately understands.
Yeah, kind of just calms down. So
Could
maybe
that be the telepathic thing? Maybe where they just put
it
through. It like I said, it's a little bit. If you tried to pull that off in Godzilla 2014, like a human telepathically communicating to Godzilla,
it's a big deviation.
Too much of a leap of imagination.
Yeah,
there's not as much reality in it. This one breaks too many. I feel like it breaks so many different. It puts too many leaps of imagination that you kind of have to just go with it.
Yes,
and just sit back and not think too much.
Yes. Right. You just have to go with it.
Because if this was a Toho film back in the 70s, legit Godzilla and Kong and Mothra would be like talking.
Yeah,
because there's films where they just talk.
Or they have speech bubbles.
They just talk like, and you see like Godzilla and Rodan fighting all the time or something. Like that's what you don't want to. I mean, obviously they're never going to do that. But this felt like borderline close to that level of just saying, well, you're trying to communicate to people. Yeah. The best way, in my opinion, would have been to just show, not tell.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you don't even need Mothra to come up and sow peace if they understand that there's a threat that's bigger than both of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like you just have some roar coming out of the gravitational well.
Yeah.
They both don't even need to do anything. They just jump right in.
I thought what they were going to do was they'd have a mini fight, which they do. But I thought Kong would just jump in back into Hollow Earth and Godzilla would just follow him.
Yeah.
And then he'd see what was actually happening and then they'd work together. Which then it's pretty much what they end up doing anyway.
Yeah.
It's just Mothra comes in between. That's all.
Mothra comes in. And then you get that iconic shot of you're back in the Hollow Earth.
And they jump out and
Look, comes out, jump out, and it's like this, WWE tag team.
Yeah.
Kong and Godzilla ready to take on.
It's in the trailer where they're running next to each other.
Yeah.
There's also a part where he rides on Godzilla for a little bit, which I thought was really cool.
He does?
Yeah, like there's
he does. Yeah.
The Claw King rides on Shimu. And then you see Kong, he like grabs Godzilla and he's on him for a little bit and then they jump off.
That's blasphemous. Yeah. That is blasphemous. You can't ride Godzilla. What is this, a fucking ride in Universal Studios? Like, what is this?
Yeah. So
they're going to make one. Oh, gosh. Yeah. That was funny. I think when they show the trailer of Godzilla and Kong charging together at something, you can't then show the film of them fighting each other for like a good half of the film. It's like, well, then maybe don't show that in the trailer. Lead into it, but I feel like they can't lead into the trailer thinking that this is a really awesome shot. I feel like it was made for the trailer. You can tell some shots are made just for that money shot.
Yeah, definitely
so
for the trailer. There is a shot after that where they're all like suspended in midair and you see them coming towards each other.
Oh, right. That midair fight scene thing. Yeah.
And then, this is the part I was talking about where I think they thought it looked really cool, where there's a part where gravity stops for a bit and they're all like floating in the air and they're fighting like
like a zero-G fight because of the pyramids colliding. And
Again, so like it could have been cool, but there was just so much happening. Like there was things moving around and like it was cool to an extent. But then I thought the part after that where they actually go back to Earth in Rio de Janeiro, that was probably a better fight overall.
Yeah, that was the actual fight happening.
Yeah.
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 The Zero G fight felt like, yeah, it's a nice piece of, VFX, graphics, and CGI. They can just put Zero G. Like, when's the last? Have we ever seen Titans fighting in Zero G?
Yeah, probably never.
Once Pacific Rim, but that wasn't technically zero. It was kind of low Earth gravity, but it was like in orbit. But it was like, yeah, okay, interesting. They did something new. It's not. Hasn't been seen before. Yeah, then the whole third act is essentially you got 2 versus 2 tag team battle. Shimu's trying to freeze everything else, and the crystal gets lost at some point. And the key to the battle is whoever has control of the crystal has control of the battle, right? So they're trying to get hands on this and do that. Nothing that happened. Godzilla's doing his own thing. He's fighting Shimu. Like, there's one point where the atomic breath comes and his ice breath comes, right? They both
and they do the
they both do the whole,
I guess Godzilla versus Shimu's more of an equal fight than Kong versus Shimu.
Yeah.
As we found out earlier in the movie.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Kong can take the Claw King if he actually does kind of defeat him. That's why he had to use Shimu.
Yep.
In that first fight scene. So I think they're probably equally matched anyway.
They're equally matched. I feel like Godzilla could have easily taken Shimu because part of the build-up of Godzilla is he's basically
he's
going out,
powering himself up so that he can
eating nuclear reactor fuel.
Yeah, and he defeats like 2 other. There's a monster in between that he like in Antarctica or something.
Yeah,
that
Tiamat. He goes to Tiamat,
yeah.
who's like sitting around in the plasmic energy of the.
And that's why he gets the pink, because before it was blue.
Yeah. Which was it Antarctica?
Yeah, or the Arctic.
The Arctic. It was there's a monster sitting in the North or South Pole, absorbing all of the magnetic field radiation, which is weird because plasma is not radiation. But yeah, it's absorbing it. And then Godzilla kills it, sits in the lair for like, I don't know how long, absorbs all that radiation, then goes out and then fights. And I feel like, it at that power level, it should be able to completely dominate whatever it's fighting. But Shimu's an ancient titan, so they power it up. So it's the one point where Shimu blasts an ice beam into the sky in Rio de Janeiro and everything just turns into like winter.
Yes.
Like almost Frozen Empire-y, kind of like style.
Yes,
like, gets in there and it's like, well, okay, final, that all happens. And then finally it's basically, as all of the guys are going, before they all get back to the surface, Godzilla leaves his axe in the Hollow Earth portal.
Kong, yes.
Sorry, Kong leaves his axe in the Godzilla, in the Hollow Earth portal. The mini Kong then jumps in, brings the axe, and he's now trying to help Kong now after the guilt of not helping him beforehand. And comes into the battlefield last minute when they're all fighting. As Claw King and Godzilla are trying to reach for the crystal, this guy comes in with the axe and just smashes the crystal with the Godzilla axe, destroying control of Shimu, and then immediately
Shimu's on their side.
Shimu's on their side.
It's suddenly 3-on-1 and game over.
Game over.
Yeah.
And we don't see exactly how Claw King dies, but all we see is Kong coming with the axe. Does he come in with the axe or does he come in by himself?
I think he comes in with the axe.
I think he comes with the axe. You just see him an offhand axe hit, and that's it. So, look, final act was a good fight. It was a bit, like I said, when you have 2-on-2, it can get a little bit convoluted. I think even the Mechagodzilla one for Godzilla versus Kong, the 2 versus 1, that's probably a boundary limit for like how much action you want to follow.
Well, in King of Monsters, it's also 2 versus 2 at one stage, right? With Rodan and Mothra, and then Godzilla and Ghidorah.
Godzilla and Ghidorah. And that felt a little bit more coordinated because there's a lot of space in between, and you have like, well, the flying monster attacks the flying monster. They don't necessarily get too convoluted in the main fight. But that was a much better coordinated 2-on-2 than this one. This definitely felt a little bit more rustle tussle.
Yes. Yeah.
So look, that's
still fun though. Still had a good time.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's I think the final conclusion was done well.
Yeah.
That they didn't have to kill Shimu.
Yes.
Like Kong just takes without the crystal, just takes Shimu back to the cave, and they all. I don't know what happens to the apes. They all get freed, obviously, because there's no more.
I think Kong becomes their king, I'm guessing, and he'll basically rule over them, but he'll be a nicer guy than the other dude, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Oh, they missed a really good opportunity for the human character to be like, he's not just Kong now. He's King Kong.
Yeah. yeah.
That would have been cheesy.
Well, considering the dialogue is pretty cheesy in this movie, so it wouldn't have been out of place if they had that dialogue. There was one, and this is for our Paisa Vasul listeners.
Oh yeah.
the whole thing with Kong, especially when he gets to the Claw King's area, and you see these like other apes that are being treated not very well.
Yes.
It is very reminiscent of a lot of Indian movies that we've seen, but particularly it reminded me directly of KGF.
KGF, yep.
KGF Chapter 1, where there's the old man that he gets taken into like the bunker or something because
he can't work anymore.
And he's blind, but they don't know that. And
Right.
there's a part in this, it's very short, but there's an older ape that he's trying to work, and the ape that's kind of hurting all the people together, he gets angry and he like kicks him down, and then Kong sees that and he turns against him straight away, and you see that ape like yelling at him, and then Kong's just like punches him.
Just imagine you have like the Telugu dub. You just has like Inka Chalu.
Yeah.
He just come Chalu.
But essentially, Kong's story in this is KGF, because he comes back and he takes over that area.
Yeah, so Chhatrapati is the same kind of vibe, right?
So yeah,
man, that's actually really good. You notice that? That's true. It's got that sentiment of like, that's how you build the revenge act.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Of like someone mistreating
the injustice, and then the hero comes in to save them. So it's yeah.
Which is, I think, another reason why people relate more to the ape characters, because you can see the facial expressions. There's a reason why we relate to ape faces more than like lizard faces.
Yes.
So Godzilla is a lizard. We can't. You can't make a lizard emotionally appealing to people.
Yes.
It's very hard. The only way is you show it dying and looking at the character as they did in the earlier Godzilla films. But yeah, that's why they kept Kong as a main character in this, because he's emotionally relatable.
Yes. Yeah.
And his facial expressions look like human expressions. So it's like, okay, we can understand him.
Which is why that whole the whole part with Kong, there's no dialogue at all, but you know exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
You know what's happening just with the expression. So yeah. But yeah, I like I said, I still had a good time with it. There are definitely plot holes, there's conveniences, but the point of this movie is to see Titans fighting each other, and you get that.
So, you get that.
Yeah.
And it leaves a good place for them to kind of follow the story on and keep doing. I guess you can't. I don't think they can do any more Kong and Godzilla films after this.
I think they're gonna, even if they do, there's gonna have to be some larger forces that come into play, bigger villains.
Yeah, because if you just keep doing tag team matches, it'll become too predictable.
Yeah.
They have to take each of the characters out and do their own thing again.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time for Godzilla to get. I think Kong's, despite the last two movies having Godzilla in the title, I see them more as Kong movies than Godzilla movies.
Yep,
so Kong's had his time. I think it's Godzilla's time next. So I think Godzilla.
Interesting.
Godzilla's probably going to have some. A more Godzilla-centric film.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's going to be. We have to have another Godzilla Day.
Yes,
as they call it in San Francisco. It's known as a G Day, the day of the attack.
Yes, which is referenced in Monarch, isn't it?
Yeah, in Monarch, it's referenced in Monarch. They call it G Day, or as we call it down in Australia, it's G'day.
Yes,
every day is G Day. I think it's a good time. Definitely,
there isn't a post-credit scene in case you're.
Yes, no post-credit scene.
Yeah, waiting.
Yeah.
So similar to the previous movie, there's no post-credit scene. But if this movie does well enough, Adam Wingard, the director, did say they have other plans. So yeah, potentially there will be another one of these. Maybe Godzilla, maybe Kong, maybe something else, maybe other monsters.
Yeah, I would love to see a Godzilla-focused film. Maybe more towards.
Just don't bring in Godzilla's son.
Oh God, no! Yeah, I forgot the name of that Godzilla. Yeah, the baby Godzilla.
Yeah.
No. It doesn't make any sense. I would much rather have it like something a bit more mysterious than on the same scale as the Godzilla 2014 level.
Yeah.
Story behind that. Who are these other creatures? Where are they coming from? I'd love to know the origin of the Titans. They never really explain the origin of Muto, the origin of Godzilla. There's like hints that it could be alien. Hints that it could be like like even the Hollow Earth whole thing was like, oh yeah, they're coming from a deeper part of the Earth.
Yeah.
But even then, we don't know. Well, where did the larger forms of these creatures come from that look almost?
Well, Ghidorah was alien, right?
Ghidorah in the original Toho, yes. Ghidorah.
I don't know if
by the aliens
in
in
King
this
of Monsters, Yeah.
I don't actually remember how they referenced the origin of Ghidorah. It's hard to say a three-headed dragon is coming from outer space in like modern day.
Yeah.
Titan things. They have to say that it's coming from some.
Yeah.
It's always. They said Ghidorah was always asleep.
Yeah.
There was always somehow, you know.
So it could be extraterrestrial, but we don't know. It
could.
Yeah.
I'd love to see if they explore the origin of that. Like Pacific
Yeah.
Rim had a cool thing where, like, you know, dimensional rifts in the ocean. That's where they came from, which means basically they're from another dimension. Whereas this would be interesting if they could focus on where they came from.
Yeah. In our review of Godzilla versus Kong, when it came out, Taran and me speculated that maybe in one of these movies, Godzilla and Kong go to space. So they go to another planet. They have to fight on another planet.
I'm pretty sure Toho did that.
They probably have. The Toho catalog is so extensive that there's very few stories that they haven't done.
And the reason why I know that is the only possible reason I know this is that the iconic Godzilla victory dance is done in a low G environment where Godzilla's in space.
Yes, I think in that one they do go to space.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
pretty
the one that
sure
goes to space because you can't jump and do that.
Yeah, that's the one with the other character, right? The it's like a robot that.
Oh, Jet Jaguar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one with Jet Jaguar.
Jet Jaguar. Yeah.
I just remember there's a scene in that movie where Godzilla and Jet Jaguar shake hands at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
They're like,
and then Jet Jaguar goes back and turns back into the normal
size.
human-sized version.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the entire credit scene is just him walking with kids running up to him. Like he's walking into the sunset, and it's just a Jet Jaguar song, which is like a nice little thematic song, but it's like he's the champion of the kids now, and all the kids jumping up at him and like asking to play with him and stuff. And I'm like, this is the most epic thing I've seen in a Godzilla film. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, no, that's I think that wraps it up for Godzilla X Kong. So yeah, it's a good time. Better with alcohol.
Yeah, I think all these movies are probably better with alcohol, but you can have fun without alcohol as well if you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember. It's good. We went to Frozen Empire next.
Yeah, we can briefly talk about that.
Yeah.
So my association with Ghostbusters is not that strong.
Yep.
Maybe because the first one came out before our time.
Yeah.
Or the first two came out before our time. So we didn't really watch them as kids. I don't remember watching them as kids. And obviously the newer ones. So there's a 2016 one with the female-led cast. And then there's Afterlife, which is technically Ghostbusters 3 because it follows on directly from 2. And then this is the fourth one. So I've never really associated that much with Ghost. I don't know much about it. I've seen them, but it's not like my favorite franchise. So there's definitely no nostalgia for me. I know a lot of people that like Afterlife and this movie to some extent are big fans of the original Ghostbusters because they feel like it follows on the same kind of themes and what they set up in those original Ghostbusters movies. The Ghostbusters fans, diehard fans, really hate the 2016 one because that's not similar to those Ghostbusters movies, the original ones. So
I think it's been decanonized. Like they said, it's not in the canon. Even the producer said it's not in the official canon. It's just
it's just a spin-off thing that they did. So I did watch Afterlife. So there was this running gag on our podcast that we're going to review Ghostbusters Afterlife, and we never did.
Never did.
So because we never actually ended up watching it in the cinema, and I ended up watching it on a plane.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty good. They introduced some new characters. It's much more centered around the new characters. This movie they bring those new characters into this movie, but they also bring all the older cast as well into this movie.
Right.
So
Afterlife didn't have all the older cast come back.
No, and they did come back, but they were literally just cameos.
Right, just cameos.
They weren't in it much.
Okay, interesting.
Whereas in this, they are like main characters as well.
Yep.
So there were parts of this movie that I did like. I thought McKenna Grace was very good. She was good in the previous one as well.
She's the central kind of protagonist. Yeah, I guess you could say.
Paul Rudd is good in everything. He plays himself, I guess, in this sort of.
Yeah.
He's not as prominent in this movie as he was in Afterlife. So in Afterlife, he's McKenna Grace's teacher,
science teacher, right?
Yeah, and he gets involved because of that. Whereas in this, he's kind of he's there, but is not as important to the main plot.
Yeah.
The elements of this movie that I didn't like as much, I guess I don't know, it just seemed like the story just wasn't as to kick into the main plot. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
Like they really build it up, and the main villain only gets introduced like halfway through the movie.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
There's a build up, you could say. Yeah.
yeah. And that build up I didn't find it that interesting. So there were parts where I was, tuning out a bit. But towards the end of the movie, it does pick up, and the climax is interesting. But yeah, overall, like if you're not a Ghostbusters fan, I don't think this is the one that's going to like pull you in. But there's elements of it that are good. So what were your feelings after watching it?
Yes, I haven't seen Afterlife yet. As a kid, I did watch Ghostbusters 2 when I was like running on the TV just as a rerun. So I remember watching it thinking, this is really interesting. It's different. Ghostbusters 2 was actually a little bit more freaky, like scary side. Like it was more horror focused with the massive picture and the painting of the dude and like all that kind of stuff. And the original cast, I just remember, vaguely Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd. Rick Moranis, I think, was in Ghostbusters 2 as well, I believe.
Yeah, he was in 1 as well, I think.
Yeah, he was in 1. So,
yeah,
like, I remember the feel of that time because the 80s, that kind of 80s slapstick horror was like the same era of like Goosebumps.
Yes.
And, ghosts and somewhat animated kind of style of horror, which is not straight out, blood and gore and, werewolf and Freddy Krueger. It was a little bit more sci-fi mix, which is really cool for, I guess, kids who were trying to find something to get into at the time. And I didn't gravitate towards it myself, but it was always something in pop culture. So watching Afterlife, I never felt to go and watch Afterlife because I didn't consider myself a diehard Ghostbusters fan. But I heard really good reviews of Afterlife, really good words about, Paul Rudd, McKenna Grace as being like the new custodians of this franchise. And they introduced a lot of new characters in Afterlife, like, Podcast and all these other kids.
Finn Wolfhard's character.
Finn Wolfhard as well. And I think Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace, perfect casting for Ghostbusters because they're already connected with so much work. Like McKenna Grace was Captain Marvel as a child in the flashback. Yeah. Finn Wolfhard in Stranger Things. Stranger Things is like a homage to all 80s and 90s, like sci-fi, thriller, kind of references. Stephen King-y kind of like novel stuff. So
McKenna Grace was also in one of the Conjuring movies. Oh no, she was in Annabelle.
Oh, she was the girl in Annabelle. Yes.
Annabelle Comes Home.
Annabelle's Come Home. Yeah. No, you're right. Damn, she's been in a lot of stuff.
She's been in a lot of stuff. Yeah.
And I think they did well in connecting us to the human characters, almost a little too well because there's a lot of human characters. There's a lot of people you focus on.
I think they're spread a bit thin because there's so many of them now. And I don't think they do justice to really any of them, except maybe McKenna Grace. She gets a bit of a subplot with just her, and I think she does well in that.
Even Finn Wolfhard, I felt like he didn't get his dues. Like he got moments, but not anything that paid off like his character development. Maybe did they focus on Finn Wolfhard in the first one?
Yeah, in the first one he's a bit more because in the first one it's literally just Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace, Paul Rudd, the mother character, and like the podcast, like it's limited. There's not that many characters.
I feel like I would like that. I would like that because it's focused. Yeah, and the older characters,
and it's also not in New York. It's based in I think it's Oklahoma or it's somewhere else.
Right, somewhere not in the middle of like the city and stuff. Okay, so this one actually took it to the big town.
Yeah,
and they're doing their whole operation in the city, which is cool. They're upscaling the operation. There's a lot of references to the original team's work as well and where they're setting up. What I did like about this film is that the world building, I always like world building. Like the first scene is like a flashback to 1904.
Yeah, that was good.
Right?
Yeah, it started off very, very well.
Yeah, it starts off with this history and this mythology, and then it goes, and it doesn't just focus on the Ghostbusters, it focuses on the Fire Masters.
Yes.
And that's where Kumail Nanjiani's character comes in. I actually... This was done really well. Like Kumail Nanjiani's kind of introduction as a comedic relief, but also as a pivotal character.
Quite an important character. But he also goes missing. Like they introduce him, but then he's not in like 40 minutes of the movie. And then they get him back again.
They get him back
again. And it turns out he's quite an important character.
Quite a pivotal person in the role.
So, like I think there's a lot of characters in this movie.
Which, look, it's a choice that the studios make, obviously. My impressions of the film was that it's a good time, it's entertaining. It just feels like the ending was a little bit rushed because of the fact that you can't pay attention to everyone. You got to tie up the knots real quick.
Yeah.
Right. And when you develop all these thematic stories of, well, Paul Rudd's character is Gary Guberman being the science teacher and suddenly taking on a new role as a potential stepfather or a father figure.
Yeah.
They build up this constant theme of, well, it's a bit awkward because how does McKenna Grace reconcile with the fact that this teacher father figure is now her actual stepfather?
Yeah.
Potentially because, her mother and this guy are now involved. They introduce these themes of, awkwardness or not knowing how to deal with it. And she can't take Gary Goodman seriously because he doesn't know how to discipline her or father her properly or just say, this is the limit. You can't do this. You can't do that. She's still a kid. So when he starts laying down the boundaries as a parental figure, she starts to rebel. And that's where you focus on her character, discovering her own path and journey, what she needs to do. That's fine. When they come to the final act of conclusion, the way that's all resolved is a tiny one-line thing in like the last minute of the film.
Yeah,
where everyone's
there's a lot of other stuff happening in this scene as well.
Yeah, they're literally getting mobbed by all the people.
There's like a lot of stuff, and then it's just like a passing dialogue that kind of ignores.
It's like, let's go get this dad, and you're just like, awkward comment. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have done it a little bit more like, sit down and like, listen, I'm sorry this happened, like a proper Paul Rudd, McKenna Grace moment to seal it off.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's just my kind of ick for not resolving things that you start off doing.
Yeah.
But in the whole story thing, that we did talk about the main antagonist of this film, which is I think Baraka, was it?
I think so. That's Frozen.
The Frozen demon. I like that they did that well. The ominous nature of something locked in this artifact.
Yeah, but
did
it
that
takes
well.
so long. I just thought it took a very long time to get to that point.
Yeah. Because by the time they actually deal with the threat, it's already past halfway point in the film.
Yeah.
And then when you feel like when it came to the end, it felt like this guy didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
Like he's a threat. He's very dangerous. Yes, we can see how ominous he is and all the other ghosts react to it. But if they released that toward the beginning of the film and he's just there doing all sorts of damage, it would have been a different film.
Well, considering they introduced this concept in the first scene, in that flashback scene.
Yeah.
Because I thought, like this is a good start. Like they've obviously set up some mystery and intrigue here, but they don't come back to it for like, a very long time, well into the runtime. And then the other thing they did with this movie, or with the marketing of this movie, because the only trailer I saw for this movie was that one where they show the beach, and then they show all the ice coming out of the that comes like towards the third act of this movie. That's like very late in the movie.
You're right. It's very late.
So I thought that would be like the premise of the movie, like that's going to be how the movie starts. But that's like that's towards the end of the movie. So it's to get to the actual Frozen Empire part is it takes its time.
I did like the fact that there's a new kind of third agency that deals with the technology behind the ghost busting.
Yes.
That's led by one of the original Ghostbusters. I forgot his name. But I like the fact that they're expanding the universe, that they've set up the groundwork for something more that could be followed up in the track. Ecto 1 looks amazing. They've now got an Ecto M, right, which is the motorcycle.
Yes.
That's a new vehicle. It's cool. They explored the different ideas, and I like the possessor one, the possessor ghost that just goes and possesses objects. I don't know if that was in the first movie, but the ideas are really cool. The only thing I would change is the pacing, or just make it longer.
Yeah. Or just remove some characters. I don't think they all needed to be in it. So, yeah.
And there's another example of a lot of footage that we saw in the trailer was not even in the film.
Yes,
like a lot of stuff, like Finn Wolfhard busting out the Slimer.
Yeah, that doesn't
we see
happen.
That Slimer gets out.
There's a part with Paul Rudd, like a jovial moment in the trailer that's not in the movie as well.
Yeah, so they definitely cut a lot of stuff, which happens. Editing happens, but it's like, well, if
it's good enough to be in your trailer, why isn't it in the movie?
I would have put stuff with Finn Wolfhard in there just to balance out the focus of the characters. And the way the movie ends is that they get the bad guy, but the bad guy releases all the other minor ghosts again.
Yeah.
So they
have to go.
Their work's cut out for them now. They have to go and catch them, which is cool. I think it hits the nostalgia factor. They definitely get there, and I'll be honest, what they focused on, McKenna Grace, kind of, I guess you could say her troubled challenges and the fact that she was not allowed to be a Ghostbuster because the mayor came in and said, "You're a minor, you can't work," was very, it's troubling. She can't get over that. So I like the fact that they worked on her exploration. She meets this ghost.
Yes.
They find something in common and they work together, but there's betrayal, there's trust. That was interesting.
That part was interesting. Yeah, I did like that.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, overall, if you like Ghostbusters, you're probably gonna like this one. I know some Ghostbusters fans also felt like this was this is not directed by, is it Jason Reitman, who directed the Afterlife, who's the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the original Ghostbusters.
Right.
So he only wrote the story for this one. The director is someone else for this one.
Interesting. Okay.
But they did feel, some of them felt like this was a part of their childhood that's starting to become what's the word, like more than commercialized, but like, for example, the guys who grew up with Star Wars, they feel like it's been, that franchise is like, they're trying to get everything they can out of it now. Well, that's similarly like what else is an 80s thing? Indiana Jones, for example. They're trying to get everything they can out of it. They thought Ghostbusters was kind of like an untouched franchise where they only good movies have come out of it. They haven't done movies just for the sake of getting, making more money.
Yeah.
This was the first one where they started to feel like, this wasn't necessary. Technically, this movie it didn't have to be made.
I could say the exact same thing about the sequel trilogy in Star Wars. Like, it's not necessary. They didn't need to make it. Because none of the repercussions of that follow on to the stuff that we love.
Correct.
But I feel like if you don't, there's one argument to be made, is that if you don't rejuvenate the franchise or if you don't work on it, it will die. Yeah. Like, to the point where.
But there's movies like the Back to the Future franchise, which they haven't made any movies after the third one.
Yeah, they haven't made any movies for other reasons, but I feel like they've left it untouched, so it's not besmirched. I don't feel like these movies ruin the originals at all. Save the remake they made with the all-female remake, which I don't know what they're trying to do there, but these ones, they at least try to honor the legacy of the original film by bringing the characters back. And we've already had, like, the premise of the Afterlife is the fact that one of the Ghostbusters in real life actually passed away. Yeah. So I think it wasn't Beckman, it was the other guy. And they built the story around the fact that, well, one of the actors actually died. Yeah. So the whole family that they built around them is that's his children.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like from an almost producer
point of view, Afterlife was good in that respect.
Yeah.
Because it does honor that legacy. I think this one, maybe if it was made differently, like maybe what we discussed, like if they removed some of the elements, it would have still been a good follow-up. But I think a lot of people are feeling like, it's not a polished product. It could have been better. It's, it's kind of diminishing returns from now for Ghostbusters.
Right. Yeah. I think the only way to kind of reverse that would be to make the next film that comes out in this franchise, which I still believe they'll do one because all the main actors are still, in their prime, they're still acting. If they want to do one, they should do a kind of new generation Ghostbusters that just focuses on the new guys in the same vein as Afterlife did. Yeah. But make it something that is unique to the franchise, that has worked in the past. Because what worked in the past was that it was so quirky and corny that it kind of worked. It tapped into a zeitgeist.
Yeah. And it's like an intersection of comedy, bit of horror.
In that. Yeah. And I feel like that kind of Halloween-y horror is no longer in play right now. It's not so much childish, trivial stuff. They have to tap into a zeitgeist and channel that for the next Ghostbusters, whatever it is, new technology, spiritual intervention, different ghosts from different cultures, that kind of stuff. Yeah, they're entering into it, right? So it's interesting to see. I think that it's good to see the original actors as well have their moment in film before something, God forbid, happens to them. They get their legacy in film, which is why Indiana Jones, I guess, the same reason. But there's always a limit, right, to how much you expand a fan base. And I'm not a Ghostbusters fan, but I'm a Star Wars fan. And I can tell, like, you know when something is going in the right direction, when something is going in a commercial direction. Yeah. And a commercial direction is always very obvious.
Yes. Well, I think Star Wars is a prime example of that.
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars, I wouldn't even call Star Wars commercial at this point. I'd say it's basically a money printing enterprise. Ghostbusters was always commercial, actually. When the original ones came out, there were toys, there were
definitely.
clothing lines, there were theme parks.
There's even an animated series, I think, that's based off Ghostbusters as well.
And
so
like
it's definitely
if it's popular, it will be you know
they will
commercialized.
try to get as much as they can out of it.
Yeah. So I think balance is everything in moderation. Like if the studios just went heavy on Ghostbusters for some reason, that'd be a bit sus because there's not that much.
Yeah.
There's not nearly as much attention as there used to be.
Yeah.
So they have to find another way to go about it, right? And it happens with all franchises. That's what they tried to do with Avatar as well in the Last Airbender animated series.
Yes.
How do you channel the fandom to make a new series? And there was lessons learned from that. They just need to keep looking at what not to do.
Yes. Well, Marvel is also another example where very quickly it went from, I think they had something good going, and then they wanted to keep it going, and maybe they shouldn't have kept it going.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think is the antidote to Marvel's rut? What do you think will bring it out?
I think they're doing it now. They're taking a bit more time between projects.
Yeah,
because there was a period after Endgame.
Yeah.
Where a lot was released in a very short amount of time, including TV shows, movies. And it was just too much. It was too much all at once. And I think that also impacted quality because I think they were definitely prioritizing quantity.
Yeah.
So now it looks like they're looking at the quality. There's only one Marvel movie this year. I think only one show. So they're slowing down, which is good. And I think they do need to prioritize one of the biggest advantages of Marvel early on was they did give directors their voice. So like Jon Favreau, Iron Man is a very Jon Favreau movie.
Yeah.
But then slowly they start to become all the same movie. Like all the Marvel movies start to become like very similar.
Yeah.
And the directors didn't have as much of a voice. So I think they maybe give some more control back to the directors.
Right.
Is what they need to do.
Which when Taika Waititi did Ragnarok.
Exactly.
Thor Ragnarok, I was like, that was perfect.
Or James Gunn and all of his Guardians movies, it's very James Gunn. Like it's his movie.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you look at some of the other Marvel movies, they seem to be a bit more generic. Like the Marvels maybe, or any of the ones that have come out more recently. Ant-Man, Quantumania, like all of them seem like the same tone, similar sort of vibe.
Right. Yeah. Where there's like this heavy studio kind of direction, you could tell there. Yeah, I feel like that. I feel like the one antidote to this kind of rut that Marvel's having, I feel, could be the X-Men, the original X-Men.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're trying to get there with X-Men 97.
So I haven't watched any of that yet. Yeah. I've actually been trying to catch up on the original X-Men animated series.
So, from the actual 90s, yeah.
Which this is a direct follow-up to. I am watching all of those now, and then we're going to review 97, so I'm going to watch all of 97.
Yeah. I saw some clips.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly good. It's surprisingly good.
Yeah.
The action is very reminiscent of the over-the-top kind of action points of the 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
And with Deadpool 3,
yes,
with Deadpool and Wolverine, I feel like there's a theme that they're going for. Like they're trying to channel this.
And then Fantastic Four as well, that's coming up.
Fantastic Four. It's not even like they're doing something intentional. I feel like they're testing the waters.
Yeah.
They're putting things out there saying, let's see how people react. Do you guys like this? Is this something you want? And when people respond, which they will, I feel like they're going to go all in. So I think X-Men's going to be the new, I guess, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Well, let's see. And they've already set up Miss Marvel as a mutant in the Miss Marvel show.
Oh, okay. She's a mutant now?
There's a passing comment at the end of Miss Marvel where they say she's a mutant.
Okay, interesting.
So that's her origin apparently. So well, I guess that's another episode. We are going to be reviewing X-Men 97 though once it's done.
Awesome, yeah.
So next week we've got a couple of movies that we might potentially watch. So Civil War is one of them.
Yeah, Civil War, not Marvel related.
Not Captain America Civil War.
Just Civil War.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. And then I think there's movies every week after that because we're getting into the summer season for the US. So there's going to be some larger movies. But Deadpool 3, which is much later. It's in July. But we will be reviewing that it'll be a podcast on the road review. So I won't give away where we're going to be.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And we'll have potentially 4 of us, 4, 5 of us, maybe.
Potentially 5 of us on the road.
Yeah.
And depending on where we are exactly,
Yeah.
we might be able to get some cinematic history in there as well. See how we go.
Yeah.
Potential.
Yeah.
We'll see how we go.
Yes. Cool.
And also Monkey Man, right? Dev Patel.
Yes, Monkey Man. Yeah, we will try to catch that as well.
Jordan Peele and
yeah.
Dev Patel direction. That looks
Yes.
really good.
Yeah.
Keen to get that one. There was another film out as well.
Kung Fu Panda 4.
Yeah, Kung Fu Panda 4.
Yeah, which we didn't get a chance to watch because that came out same weekend, I think, as Godzilla.
Yep.
Godzilla X Kong. But yeah, we'll try to watch that. I don't think I've seen 3 yet. I don't remember watching 3, so I think I need to catch 3 first.
Oh yeah, I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen 1 and 2.
3, he goes back to his village. The panda
yeah,
village.
I don't think I've seen 3. So,
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Bhaskar, for joining us.
That's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great conversation as always.
Nice little retrospective and dip into the Toho universe.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe one day we'll review all of the as Dan Murrell had done. Maybe we'll go and look at all of the movies, but
it's going to be more painful than it is enjoyable, I feel like.
Yeah, like some of the movies that he had towards the bottom of his list, like just looking at the clips that he had in his video, I'm like, it's going to be a struggle to actually watch those movies.
Yeah. But no, I'm glad that we are on the other end where we just get to look and pick and choose what we enjoy. So that's good.
Yeah. All right. So if you want to get in touch with us and tell us your thoughts about either Godzilla X Kong or Ghostbusters, you can contact us on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or even an email if you want to send us an email. Obviously, if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a comment right below. Subscribe. I meant to say this at the start, but I always forget. Subscribe to our channel if you find this stuff interesting. We've already done a lot of episodes, a lot of reviews, so we'll keep doing them. And give us a like on this video.
Yeah, if you have any points that you'd like to contest or you don't agree with something, comment away. We jump in there, we get in the comments.
Yeah. There was one comment that we got actually, and I do notice this, by the way, because I do edit our podcast, but we do say some words a lot, especially me and Tara when we're talking to each other. We say yeah a lot.
Oh, really?
So we acknowledge what we're saying. So I think we say yeah to acknowledge.
Someone that was comment about that?
Yeah, there was one guy, thanks for the comment, on our Madam Web review where he's like, thanks a lot, guys. I'm now drunk because I took a shot every time you guys said yeah.
Amazing how people pick up on that stuff.
Yeah. So
there's another shot. There you
go. But yeah, leave any comments that you want. Even if they're mean, I don't mind.
Be brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Be like Godzilla.
Yeah.
When he's fighting Shimu and Kong. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also listen to us. So if you're finding us on YouTube, we do have an audio stream. So if you're out and about and you don't want to waste your data, you can listen to us on iTunes or Spotify because we've got an audio version of the podcast as well, which we've had for a very long time. We've actually only transitioned to YouTube more recently.
Yeah.
Great.
And Google Podcasts as well.
Yes, we're on Google. We're on pretty much any of the podcasting platforms.
Yeah. But Google's coming out of service in July, so.
Oh, okay. What are they doing? Are they?
They're just kicking everyone off. I don't know why.
Okay.
So
I think most people use they either use Spotify or if you're an Apple user, you just use the Apple Podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if many people are using the other ones as much. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, potentially.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching and listening and spending part of your day with us. So yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.
See ya.